If you ever had one of those nights where sleep just refuses to cooperate,
Yeah.
you're tossing, turning, maybe up, worrying about a deadline.
Or you just got stuck working a double shift.
Exactly. And when the alarm finally screams at you, you drag yourself into the kitchen, pour that first cup of coffee, and just realize, I am functionally useless today.
Oh, that feeling of brain fog is so relatable. The slow reflexes, the inability to focus on anything complex.
Maybe even that irrational anger when the toaster burns your bagel.
We've all been victims of the brain's fatigue.
Right. Now take that exact level of impairment and project it onto an astronaut. This is someone who has to perform life or death tasks, manage systems worth billions.
Or calculate a critical maneuver.
Yeah. If our performance tank's trying to send a simple email, how do these elite professionals handle chronic exhaustion while orbiting the Earth? Welcome to Med Decode.
That is the core question we are unpacking today. Our deep dive is built around a critically important blueprint from NASA's Human Research Program.
A massive report, right?
Yeah, huge. It meticulously details the risks of performance failure from sleep loss, work overload, and our, constantly misaligned internal clocks.
Okay, let's unpack this. What's fascinating here is that NASA views fatigue as a mission-critical threat. It's right up there with radiation or equipment failure.
Precisely. They treat sleep debt as a measurable engineering risk. And by studying how NASA manages it, we get this incredible look into the risks faced by people unearthing truck drivers, surgeons, pilots.
So we're basically using the blueprint for astronaut risk management to understand our own daily fatigue.
We are.
Our mission today is to equip you with the knowledge to spot these fatigue traps in your own life. We're going to break down the 4 key components that define cognitive impairment.
And reveal how shockingly impaired we get when tired.
Seriously, the comparison to being drunk is going to surprise you. And then we'll look at the high-tech, space-grade countermeasures that might just save your weekday.
The NASA report outlines 4 main factors. They're all interconnected, and they consistently crash our alertness and performance.
They affect everyone, but I imagine they're most acute in these high-stress environments.
Exactly. Chaotic schedules, high vigilance required. That's the perfect storm.
Let's start with the one most of us are probably carrying around right now. Chronic sleep loss, the debt trap.
Right. So the general recommendation for adults is 7 or more hours. Ideally, 7 to 9.
But it's different for everyone, right?
Varies widely. Some people genuinely need 10 hours, others maybe only 6. But the average adult, if you give them optimal conditions, no alarms, they'll naturally sleep about 8.5 hours.
So what happens when we consistently fall short of whatever our personal number is?
Well, studies where subjects were restricted to, say, 4 or 6 hours of sleep a night for just a week or two showed their objective performance just steadily degrades.
They get worse and worse.
Week after week, they slow down, they make more errors, they take longer to finish things.
And here's where it gets truly insidious and why we miss the warning signs.
Because your subjective sleepiness, how tired you feel, it only increases a little bit at the start and then it completely plateaus.
So your brain tells you, hey, I'm adjusting to this. 4 hours of sleep is fine.
Exactly. But objectively, the data shows your performance is still deteriorating. You lose the ability to accurately gauge your own impairment. You're just driving yourself deeper into that debt trap.
That denial mechanism is terrifying.
Yeah.
And that steady, unseen slide brings us to factor 2. Acute sleep loss. You could call it the impairment cliff.
This is all about staying awake for too long continuously. Once you push past that maximum sustained vigilance threshold, which is about 16 hours awake for most people,
16 hours.
the degradation just accelerates dramatically. And this is where we have to talk about the alcohol equivalents. This is the finding that should stick with everyone.
Okay, talk us through the numbers. How bad is it?
Research shows that sustained wakefulness of just 19 hours leads to performance decrements equivalent to having a blood alcohol concentration, a BAC, of 0.05%.
Wait, 0.05%. That is the legal threshold for impaired driving in many places.
It is. So if you pull an all-nighter for a project and walk into work at 8 a.m., you are functionally impaired enough that you could be arrested for driving in some countries.
Wow.
And if you stretch that to a full 24 hours awake, your cognitive function drops to a BAC equivalent of 0.10%. 0.1%. A severely sleep-deprived person trying to land an aircraft or perform surgery is operating at a functional level similar to someone who is quite drunk. The risks are identical.
That is a chilling perspective. We need to respect that our brains physically cannot do that. Okay, moving on. Factor 3 is sleep inertia, the grogginess ghost.
This is that impairment that hits you right after waking up. It can last anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. Your brain, it just needs time to fully boot up.
It's that deep fog when your feet hit the floor. And the initial cost of that grogginess is shocking, according to the data.
It really is. The initial performance decrement from sleep inertia is approximately 41%.
40%.
To give you some context, the impairment from being awake for 48 hours straight is about 30%.
So you're telling me you are worse off in the first 5 minutes after waking up than you are after staying awake for 2 solid days.
That's what the data says. It's a pretty strong argument for, delaying any big decisions until the coffee kicks in.
That makes the snooze button a truly dangerous device. Okay, finally, factor 4. Circadian phase. Basically working at the wrong time.
Our alertness isn't static. It follows this natural 24-hour cycle. Performance just plummets during what's called the circadian nadir, or your biological night.
So what does optimizing look like in biological terms?
High sleep efficiency is best when sleep begins about 6 hours before your body's lowest temperature point.
The deepest part of your biological night.
Right. Proper alignment is what gives us that consolidated quality sleep. Any misalignment, like jet lag or a sudden shift change, just throws the whole system into chaos.
So NASA knows these 4 factors. They know the BAC equivalents. They know the dangers. So why are astronauts still so consistently sleep deprived?
If we look at the operational reality, the data is just stark. Astronauts consistently average only about 6 hours of sleep during spaceflight.
Only 6.
Whether it was on the shuttle, Mir, or the ISS, that's a 2-hour deficit every single night. That debt just accumulates over weeks and months.
And it's not just the novelty of sleeping in 0G. Why the shortage?
It's overwhelmingly due to environmental and operational factors, mostly work overload. NASA sets guidelines limiting work to 6.5 hours a day, 48 hours a week.
But schedule creep is a problem everywhere, I guess.
It's a pervasive problem. Tasks inevitably spill into personal time.
And this issue is not new. There's that famous historical example from the Skylab mission, isn't there?
There is. Back in 1973 on Skylab 3, the crew was so overloaded, so constantly behind, that on day 45, they staged a kind of low-key rebellion.
What did they do?
They just refused to perform scheduled tasks for a whole day. Shut down communications, demanded a more realistic pace. Mission Control had no choice but to adjust.
Wow. It really highlighted that mental capacity is a finite resource, even for these super motivated people.
Exactly. And beyond the schedule, you have the environment itself.
What's that doing to their sleep?
Noise is a continuous problem.
Yeah.
You've got alarms, machinery, the galley water pump. And more subtly, there's just not enough time built in to truly wind down before bed.
And then there's the relentless circadian disruption of low Earth orbit.
Oh, absolutely. The ISS orbits Earth every 90 minutes. That's 16 sunrises and sunsets a day. It's impossible for the human body to entrain to that.
And on top of that, they have these things called slam shifts.
Yeah. For crucial mission events like EVAs or landings, they have to make these massive, sudden changes to their bedtime.
And these shifts have a real measurable cost.
They do. One study showed nearly 1 in 5 sleep episodes on the ISS was circadian misaligned. And when that happens, astronauts lose a full hour of sleep, and they end up using way more sleep medication.
So let's delve deeper into what this fatigue does to the high-level cognitive processes. We know it slows us down, but what parts of the brain suffer most?
Well, we see huge effects on vigilance, that sustained attention. But beyond simple alertness, sleep loss severely impairs complex attention and, most critically, working memory.
So our ability to hold and manipulate multiple pieces of information at once.
Exactly. And sometimes people can maintain accuracy, they can make the right decision, but it's at the cost of a dramatically slower processing speed.
And this is where training has its limits.
Right. You can train relentlessly for a primary task and maybe hold that performance level. But any secondary tasks, monitoring an alarm, dealing with a surprise failure, they suffer massive decrements. Your mental reserve is just gone.
You're operating without a safety net. What about the physical and social costs of this kind of chronic fatigue?
This is where space operations tie directly back to public health. Sleep deprivation is associated with elevated resting cortisol and an exaggerated stress response.
So your body's fight-or-flight system is on high alert.
Constantly. And chronic activation of that system is linked to serious health problems on Earth, like obesity and cardiovascular issues.
So fatigue is literally making us sicker, not just slower. And in that confined, high-pressure environment of space, how does it damage teamwork?
Critically. Sleep deprivation impairs the accurate recognition of human facial emotions. Happy, angry, sad.
I can see how that would be a huge problem.
In a crisis or during a long mission, you need to be able to instantly and accurately read your colleagues. If you can't read your crewmate, you become less empathetic, which increases the risk of conflict right when you need cooperation the most.
So we've established that everyone's vulnerable. But are some people genuinely better equipped to handle this? Are there, super sleepers?
Yes, the vulnerability to sleep loss is considered stable and trait-like.
Yeah.
Some people are just natural short sleepers, or they have a genetic resilience.
And NASA is studying this.
Very closely. They're interested in the PER3 polymorphism. Individuals with what's called the PER355 variant are known to be more susceptible to cognitive decline under fatigue and often need more sleep habitually.
So for a long-duration mission to Mars, knowing your crew's genetic susceptibility to fatigue becomes as important as knowing their technical skills.
It's another key piece of the puzzle.
If the performance risk is this high, NASA must have some robust, high-tech tools to fight it. Let's start with the most common one, drugs.
Pharmacological solutions, yeah. And the data shows 3/4 of astronauts are using sleep aids.
That's a lot.
It is. About 75% use medications like zolpidem and zaloplan, often on more than half their nights in space. They're very effective at achieving faster sleep onset, which is crucial on a tight schedule.
But you mentioned a big catch earlier, linking back to the grogginess ghost.
A significant catch. While they help you fall asleep, they're not associated with longer total sleep duration. And worse, studies show that using them leads to significantly worse performance during a forced, rapid awakening.
So if an emergency alarm goes off,
The sleep aid has just amplified the effects of sleep inertia. It's a calculated operational trade-off they have to make.
okay, what about staying awake?
Stimulants are essential. Caffeine is highly effective, even in low doses, for improving alertness and, very importantly, for reducing sleep inertia after a nap. And for really long operations, they'll use wake-promoting drugs like modafinil.
This is where the NASA blueprint gets really interesting for us on Earth. Using light as medicine, a non-pharmaceutical tool.
Light is the most powerful tool we have for our circadian rhythm. The ISS is deploying new solid-state lighting arrays, SSLAs, specifically engineered to manage astronaut alertness. These aren't just fancy bulbs.
What makes them so special?
They have dynamic settings. They use a blue-enriched white light for high alertness and to shift the body clock, and then a blue-minimized white light when it's time to prepare for sleep.
So it's about the color of the light.
It's the wavelength. That blue light, specifically in the 460 to 480 nanometer range, is the non-pharmaceutical MVP. It's incredibly effective at alerting the brain. The fact that NASA invests millions in advanced lighting to solve a shift work problem tells you how seriously we should take it on Earth.
Finally, let's talk scheduling. Can we outsmart fatigue through clever timing, like banking sleep or napping?
Naps are a double-edged sword because of that sleep inertia. The guidance is clear. Short naps, around 10 minutes, are much better than longer naps of 30-plus minutes.
Because they minimize that crushing groggy effect.
Exactly. Split sleep schedules have also been shown to work. Say 5 hours at night and 5 hours during the day can maintain performance similar to a full 8 hours.
But the personal benefit of a nap can clash with team dynamics, which is a key risk.
The Mars 520-day simulation gave us a sobering warning on that. One participant who napped a lot saw his interaction with the crew drop by 20%. His individual performance might have been okay, but his detachment posed a risk to the group.
And what about banking sleep? Can you really store it up?
Preemptive sleep extension, getting more sleep before a period of restriction, does offer some cognitive benefits. But the data is clear. You cannot binge sleep your way out of chronic debt. One long night isn't enough to restore function after weeks of deprivation.
So what does this deep dive mean for all of us back on Earth?
It means the acute challenge of sleep loss, circadian desynchronization, and work pressure translates directly from space to our daily lives, especially for anyone working shifts, long hours, or facing chronic stress.
And astronauts survive by using this very controlled combination of strategies.
A monitored combination of drugs, light therapy, and strategic scheduling, yes.
And looking ahead to Mars missions, 2.5 years long, the fatigue challenge is just going to escalate.
Oh, absolutely. The Mars sol is 24.65 hours long, creating this persistent, low-grade circadian hurdle. Then you add in communication delays and the new risk of work underload during the long transit.
Monotony setting in.
Right. Fatigue remains a central danger. That's why NASA is relying so heavily on biomathematical models, like SAFTI and FAST. They take schedules and sleep histories and predict exactly when performance will drop.
They're trying to engineer fatigue out of the system before the mission even begins.
That's the goal.
This knowledge really leads us to a crucial question for society. The NASA report mentions that sleep disruption affects immunity, hormone production, cardiovascular health. It's a physiological crisis.
Well, not just a mental one.
Right. And given that almost a third of the U.S. population reports getting fewer than 6 hours of sleep a night, often by choice, shouldn't we be asking about the long-term public health risk of this chronic, self-selected sleep loss?
I think we have to. If NASA enforces such strict life-or-death standards for the performance of 7 people in space, maybe we should stop treating chronic sleep debt as a lifestyle choice here on the ground.
And start recognizing it for what it is.
A silent, ongoing public health crisis affecting millions. Something to think about the next time you decide to trade that last hour of rest for another hour of scrolling.
And that's a wrap on this episode of MedDecode. I really appreciate you joining me today. If something we talked about sparked your interest, or if there's a medical term that's been bugging you, let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this, be a pal and share it with a friend. We'll catch you on the next one.